Hello and welcome to the Victorian Romance Apron tutorial. I'm so happy you are here. In this video, we'll be sewing together a timeless, romantic, and vintage-inspired apron. This pattern features delicate details like soft gathers, straps that crisscross beautiful at the back, and it also includes a charming ruffle detail along the straps. The apron is designed with a shorter length, so be sure to check the finished measurements before cutting your fabric in case you like to adjust the length. Whether you are making it as a gift for your creative workspace or just to add a touch of romance to your everyday, I hope you enjoy each step of the process and maybe even learn or practice a new technique along the way. So, with this being said, let's go over the materials you'll need to bring this pattern to life. First, your main fabric. This pattern works best with medium weight woven fabrics that provide enough structure to hold the silhouette while allowing for comfort and ease of movement. If you decide to work with fabrics that have a slightly fluid drape, keep in mind that key sections need to be treated to add stability. Medium to lightweight fusible interfacing depending on fabric selection. Sewing thread. Choose the color that matches or contrasts your fabric depending on the design details you want to encase. And finally, your sewing patterns. This pattern comes in sizes from extra small to extra large, and you could find it linked below in the description box. Before cutting, iron your fabric with enough steam to pre-shrink it. Place the pieces on top of the fabric following the instructions listed on the pattern. Set the pattern on the wrong side of the fabric, placing the grain line parallel to the selvage of the fabric. Make sure the distance between the grain line and the edge of the fabric is the same at the top and bottom of the arrow. This allows setting the pattern straight. Use pins or weights to secure the pattern and avoid movement. And since the pattern has the seam allowance already included, cut the piece following the outer edge of the paper. Remember to transfer all the marks, points, and notches to your fabric. Some pattern pieces need to be cut on fusible interfacing as well. This includes the bib, straps, and waistband to provide structure and durability. Keep this in mind, especially if you are working with lightweight fabrics. Now it's time to start assembling the piece. To begin with, let's apply fusible interfacing to one of the bib pieces, the waistband, and both strap pattern pieces. For a cleaner finish and to reduce bulk at the seams, you can trim the interfacing edges by 1/8 of an inch before fusing, leaving the seam allowance free of extra layers. Next, with right side facing, align and sew the top edge of the two bib pieces together using 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Press the seam allowance towards the facing bib side and then understitch close to the seam on the facing side to keep the edge crisp and the lining in place. Next, press the facing bib towards the wrong side of the fabric, aligning all edges neatly. At this point, you may choose to top stitch along the top edge for added definition and a more secure finish. To keep the layers together while continuing construction, you can baste around the side and bottom edge of the bib piece. After that, take the ruffle strap piece and run 2 rows of gathering stitches using the longest stitch length on your machine. One at 1/8 of an inch and another at 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge. Gently pull the bobbin threads to gather the ruffle until it matches the length of the marked area between the notches on the strap base. Once you're happy with the gathering, secure the threads by looping them around a pin in a figure-8 shape. This simple trick will prevent the gathers from stretching or shifting while you handle and attach the piece in place. Next, serge the outer edge of the ruffle and fold it up by 1/4 inch towards the wrong side of the fabric and top stitch to secure. In this point, I would like to suggest that if you are a beginner, it may be easier to finish the outer edge and do the folding and top stitching before gathering the ruffle itself. Then, with the tip of your iron, press along the hem line of the ruffle to get a more crispy finish. To continue, place one strap on each side of the V piece and with right sides facing align the edges and sew them together using 1/4 inch of seam allowance and press the seam towards the side. Next, with right sides facing, align the gathered ruffle between the notches on the strap base and baste it in place to keep it secure. Take the strap facing and fold the bottom edge up by 1/4 inch towards the wrong side. You'll notice a slightly wider area at one end of the strap pattern. That's the area where you'll do the fold. Making this fold now can help with a cleaner finish later when enclosing the seams, but if preferred, you can also press it at the end just before finishing the cleaning of the strap. Now proceed by taking the strap facing piece and place it on top, making sure right sides are together, sandwiching the ruffle in between, and sew along the edge of the strap from end to end using 3/8 of seam allowance. Then trim slightly the seam allowance to reduce bulk and understitch on the strap facing to help the strap fall and lay nicely when completed. Next, with right side facing, close the strap by aligning the inner edge of the strap with the inner edge of the facing. Since the facing is slightly smaller, you'll need to ease it in gently so the edges align properly. Pin along the entire length of the strap to secure. When you reach the area where the ruffle is, gently push the ruffle inwards and out of the seam line to avoid catching it as you sew. Once that's done, sew the inner edge of the strap from the bottom end up to the point where it meets the bib, using 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Once sewn, trim the seam allowance to reduce bulk. Then turn the strap right side out and give it a really good press to shape the edges neatly. To continue, take the open end of each strap facing left at the back of the bib, aligning it just slightly above the previous seam line where the strap meets the bib. From the right side of the bib, stitch in the ditch, which means sewing exactly over the existing seam to secure the strap ends in place. Make sure you catch all layers underneath for a clean and strong finish. Next, to finish the straps, fold the open raw end of each strap about 3/8 of an inch towards the inside and press to create a clean edge. Secure the fold with pins or a few hand stitches if needed. Then top stitch around the entire strap close to the edge to neatly finish and secure all layers. And as you can see here, with this top stitching, you will also be closing the open ends of the strap, ensuring everything is neatly sealed. As you continue on the skirt piece, search the side and bottom edges. Then fold and press the sides and bottom edges 1/8 of an inch towards the wrong side of the fabric. Now it's time to clean the corners of the skirt, also known as mirror corners. To do so, we're going to start by marking the points where the folds meet at each corner. Then I'm going to insert a pin at each point to transfer this information to the wrong side of the fabric. Next, I'm going to draw a diagonal line connecting these 2 points. Next, I'm going to fold the corner in half along the line that I just marked, ensuring right sides are facing. And I'm going to sew along the line. Once this is done, I'm going to have a considerable excess of fabric there, so we need to trim it. I'm going to clip the corner tips to reduce bulk, and I'm going to press that seam open. Once this is done, I'm gonna fold the edges back with the help of my hands and I'm gonna push the corners out gently. Press the corners and fold carefully and then edge stitch along the sides and bottom edges. To continue, search all around the edges of the pocket pieces. Next, fold the top edge of the pocket 3/4 towards the wrong side of the fabric. Press it and edge stitch to secure it in place. Then fold the bottom edge 1/4 inch towards the wrong side and press, and repeat the same for both sides edges and press everything neatly in place. Next, using the pocket placement marks on the patterns as a guide, position the pocket on the skirt. Edge stitch around the sides and bottom edges of the pocket and leave the top open. To reinforce the pocket opening, sew an inverted triangle, like a small stitched triangle pointing downwards at the top corners. After that, run 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top edge of the skirt, using the longest stitch length available on your machine. One row should be 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and the second row must be 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Do not backstitch at the beginning or end, just leave long thread tails. Once the stitching is completed, gently pull the bobbin threads to gather the fabric until the skirt width matches the waistband size, using the notches on the waistband pattern piece as a placement guide. Distribute the gathers evenly across the width and secure them in place with pins or a long basting stitch to keep the fabric stable before attaching the waistband. Next, take the waistband piece that has been fused and with right sides together attach the bottom edge of the waistband to the top edge of the gathered skirt, aligning the centers. Leave 1/4 of an inch free at each end of the waistband to allow for clean finish later. Sew both pieces together using 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Make sure the gathered portion is facing down against the feed dogs of your machine. This will help ease the gathers more evenly and give you better control as you sew. Once completed, press the seam allowance upwards towards the waistband. For the next step, we're going to clean finish the strips. To do so, fold the strip in half lengthwise with right sides together and sew along the raw edges using 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Gently pull or stretch the strip slightly as you sew. This helps keep the seam even and prevents the strap from twisting once turned. Trim the ends of the bias strip straight at a 90-degree angle. Then trim the seam allowance to 1/8 of an inch to reduce bulk. Now it's time to turn the strip right side out. To do so, I'm going to use a loop turner. So first I'm going to clip a small notch near the end of the strip without cutting through the seam, so the hook of the loop turner has something to grab. Then I'm going to insert the loop turner all the way through the tube. I'm going to hook the clip end and lock it in place. And then I'm just gently pull the strip through until it's fully turned. Then, following the notches on the waistband, place the bias rollout straps right side together with the waistband edge, forming small loops. This is where the apron straps will be inserted to tie it close. At this point, you could base the loops in place to hold them securely before continuing. After that, take the waistband facing, fold and press the bottom edge up by 1/2 inch towards the wrong side. And just if you are working with heavier fabrics, you can trim the bottom edge seam allowance down to 1/4 of an inch to help reduce bulk, and in that way you just need to fold 1/4 of an inch instead of 1/2 inch. Next, with right sides together, place the VIP piece on top of the waistband skirt piece, aligning the centers of both pieces. Pin it in place to secure it, and then still with the right sides together, place the waistband facing on top, sandwiching the bib between the two waistband layers. And then just sew along the top and side edges using 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. Next, trim any fabric excess if needed and clip the corners carefully to reduce bulk. Then turn the waistband right side out and gently push the corners with a chopstick or a knitting needle. Next, understitch along the facing side, This will help the facing fall in neatly and lay flat for a cleaner finish. Finally, flip and press the waistband facing to the inside of the garment. Align the folded edge of the facing so that it sits slightly above the existing seam where the waistband and skirt were joined, just being in place to prevent shifting. And from the right side, stitch in the ditch along the waistband seam to secure the facing, making sure you catch all the layers neatly underneath. To complete your garment, give it a final press to smooth out any wrinkles or creases and sharpen the seam. Then assemble your apron by crisscrossing the straps at the back. Insert the straps through the fabric loops on each side of the waistband and tie a knot or a bow to secure it beautifully. And there you have it. Your apron is now complete. I hope this project brought you as much joy as it brought me while making it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to tag me or use the hashtags shown on the screen so I can see your beautiful creations. Thank you once again for sewing along with me. Let's keep creating together with love and intention. Have a happy sewing, and until next time, bye.